Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. We are now at 6:09. I'll call the meeting to order. Heidi, can you do a quick roll call?
Deborah?
Yes.
Susan?
Yep.
Roy?
Yes, here.
Dick?
Yes.
Sheila? Here. I'm also here.
Good, Heidi. All right. Next item on the agenda is approval of the meetings of 1/24/24. I put a little note on the bottom of that relative to the history. This is the meeting where Denise attended and the head drop off, came back, but then resigned after that, and she declined to do the minutes from the meeting.
Right.
So I sat and listened to our discussion again. Okay, we're even better in replay.
Aren't you sweet?
Okay, and I documented the notes in the minutes there.
Gotcha.
Are there any additions or corrections to that set of minutes for the 24th?
No, I make
No.
a motion, we
Here-
accept
here- Okay,
minutes
Susan
of the January 24th
moves to accept that,
meeting.
those, and Heidi seconds. Heidi, would you do the roll call, please?
Sure. Deborah?
Yes.
Susan?
Yep.
Roy?
Yes.
Sheila?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Yes.
And Heidi, just a little louder so that Dick can hear. He's gotta be 2 miles away, 3 miles. away.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Second thing is the minutes of 3/6/24, which Heidi wrote. And you notice we're much better than.
So I make a motion, we accept the meeting minutes of 3/6/24.
Is there a second? Deborah, second. Okay, any discussion?
I had a question,
Sure.
because I didn't understand, trying to, okay, it's about flyers, I think.
Okay, go ahead.
Action item,
Yeah, that was,
updating.
she wasn't here, that's why she.
Yeah,
Oh,
flyers.
he's trying to understand.
Yeah,
Right, so I was
because
gonna
I read
create.
them all, and I was
Right.
like, I'm
Yeah.
not sure what.
I
they
was
meant
trying
here.
to create the flyer to put out so that people could get further information about tax,
Circuit
circuit breaker, yeah,
Oh,
We're
to
gonna put it
create
in
a
a couple
flyer.
places,
right.
okay.
That's what we're talking about, a flyer.
Yeah, but it said we've been waiting for the image to be approved. What do you?
Right, so there was an image that they made of the circuit breaker that was, Caitlin had created it and she did it in Canva, and we were asking, do we have permission to use that so that we keep the same theme?
Okay,
In the end, she got permission, but the problem is that she couldn't send it to me in a way that could be utilized. So I still don't have it, to be able to, so I have to recreate, and at this point, we're kind of at the end and maybe it's not gonna happen. So, but we tried.
We tried, okay.
Yep.
That's what that is. Okay,
so I'll second.
well,
We second?
well, the fact that you weren't at the meeting, okay,
Oh,
you probably can't vote or second.
okay,
At least you can't vote because you weren't here for the meeting.
okay.
Yeah, well, if you don't second, I think we're better off, and
I already
think,
seconded.
yeah, you're already seconded, so, okay, we have a motion, we have it, it's been properly seconded.
Any other discussion?
Any other discussion? If not, Heidi, will you call the roll call, please?
Deborah?
Yes.
Susan?
Yep.
Roy?
Yes,
Not voting Dick?
Yes.
I will also approve the minutes.
Awesome, and thank you for doing them,
yeah,
very seriously, thank you.
yes, they are a beautiful set of numbers.
Well, did I let you know what happened?
Yeah, absolutely,
You got stuck. Talking.
you do a great set of minutes, man.
She really does.
Okay, hang on a second here. All right, let me get to the next item on the agenda, which is review and voting to determine TFC recommendations on approaches seniors could use to consider for funding real estate taxes that were discussed initially at our 3/6 meeting, but we did it kind of quickly and you didn't have it really. I don't remember if you had it beforehand. I didn't want to ask for a vote at that meeting because we just barely had time to go over it. I'll present it briefly here again and ask for your vote and approval. Learned a little bit from last round when we got ready for the select board presentation when we had to come back and just say, do you agree with, did we make a decision on this? Did we vote on that? What I'm asking for now is we get to major points that we vote on those as we go along. So we have to come back and do those all, before the, presentation to the select board. So hang on a minute, let me get. Let's see, where are we? Now I'm going to try to share different. Okay. Now back to here and share screen. Okay, Dick, can you see my desktop? Dick, can you see the desktop titled Notes for TFD Discussion on
He's on
Tax
mute.
Deferral?
He's on mute.
Oh, you're on mute, Dick? Okay,
Now I can see everything.
all right, fine. All right, I'm not gonna go over all of this, but one of the things we did was we looked at the whole issue of what are the resources that that seniors have during retirement that they can use to deal with their expenses. And clearly, there are things like social security, pensions, savings, investments. Appreciated home value is something that we have seen people don't really understand or think about as an asset that they can spend down during retirement. And quite often for some seniors, spending down the things they've spent all their life saving is a real mindset change and it's difficult. It's one step short of the emotion of taking out a lien on your house. Okay, I mean, no, we never spend that money. Okay, well, you're supposed to. That's the plan. So one of the things we did was we looked at approaches that could help seniors, provide them additional ways beyond circuit breaker, beyond possibly an SME program, that kind of stuff, dealing with the appreciated asset value they have for their home. And as we talked about briefly then, and I'll share it with you again here, depreciated value of a home in Lancaster that a taxpayer has lived for 10 plus years. Okay, so if they bought the house in 2024, took out a typical a classic mortgage, 20% down, 80% mortgage. I guesstimated 6%, which may have been high back then, but at least it was a representative number. And I worked through and then looked at how the house appreciated value had gone up in Lancaster. And substantially, okay, the total value of homes have gone up dramatically in the last 10 years in Lancaster. A document I found said they went up by 80% in Lancaster. Other towns, somewhere in that range. This means that people who own their home have a significant amount of equity in the home that they could use to cover both taxes and other expenses. All right, trips, okay, could pay for at least some of the trips that Deborah's going to be taking here soon, okay? Yes, okay. And if you look out 10 years from now, if they stay in the home, and 20 years from now, this is a substantial amount of equity, particularly if you look out 20 years from now, these projections, and I projected assuming that taxes would go up 20% more than they have in the last 10 years, and that appreciation would go up 20% less than it has in the last 10 years, to try to be somewhat conservative. I took the data for the last 10 years as that's the facts, but I tried to be conservative. And this could put people in the, I'm sorry, can we all see this here? We give a person who bought the typical sized average house in 2015, I guess I rounded it off to $1,300,000 in total equity. Their mortgage that they paid off plus the appreciated equity, they've gained $1 million in appreciated equity. Nothing they paid into, just the house has appreciated. So a quick comment, people have sometimes, and the phrase was used, referenced to be house poor. It's not the right phrase. People in Lancaster who've been in their homes for a recent period of time are house rich. They just have to understand how to make access to those funds, okay? Dick asked me to look at converting this back to 2024 numbers. I did that, Dick, for you. The $1.3 million would be $773,500 in 2024, which is still quite a bit of money that one could use for taxes, for, all kinds, medical expenses, for other things. It just, travel, all kinds of things people could use that for. So that was the first point, and a significant amount of money that people should understand is available to them. The question is how to convert that equity into money that you can spend. And there are a couple of different approaches here, okay? And they should consider it, all right? First is the use of tax deferral, which is a Massachusetts state program. We'll talk about that in a minute. The second thing is a quote reverse mortgage, which you can do with a local bank. And the third is to allocate proceeds from investments to cover your taxes. All right, so these are three things we looked at, and in effect, we're going to say we want seniors to consider these with proper legal, financial, and tax advice, and even family advice. All right, here's what this comes down to, and I won't go through everything here. Let's see what we can get, if we can get this all on one page. Well, we'll do the best we can. All right. Tax deferral summary. Tax deferral is a Massachusetts state program. It is clause 41A, I think, correct? Right. 41A, established law, and it allows, and we have to look at this from both the town of Lancaster's point of view and the taxpayer's point of view, because there are different aspects here.
Yeah.
The town of Lancaster, at least it's an established law. We have process and procedures. We've been through it at least once in the last few years.
Mhm.
Okay. For the taxpayer, it saves the tax payment. Average house, $8,534 this year. All right. And if you continue to meet the eligibility criteria, which we're talking about in a minute, you can renew it in the future years and roll over not only the accrued taxes, which means you don't have to pay the taxes this year, but you don't have to pay the taxes next year, as well as the interest on the taxes from last year. And going forward, et cetera, you keep rolling over that cost.
As long as each year you qualify.
As long as each group, yeah, right. I think if you continue to meet the eligibility criteria, right, okay, you can continue to roll that over. This is good, all right. The cons for the town of Lancaster are the town must cover, by raising taxes on other people, this unpaid tax. If it's only one house, it's only $8,000, which is a drop in the bucket. It's 0.05% of our annual budget. It's, round off error is a phrase that most financial people would use. Okay. It's not practical to scale this, to do a whole bunch of people and propose a whole bunch of people do this, because it went up to 100 taxpayers who did this. The town would have to do something to raise this money, because now you've got $800,000.
Eventually, you'll get the money back plus interest.
Right, but in the
But
interim,
at the time that's
Yes.
being done,
That year, it's not sustainable. So
but it's no different than the people that don't pay their taxes and the tax collector has to take them to court.
Right,
Sometimes that takes 3 to 4 years. even
Right,
though-
but
so
the number-
eventually it comes.
yeah,
right, the number, yeah, eventually the town will get its money. But in the year, if 100 people did this,
Yeah.
the financial people here would have to think about what we're gonna do, and they would probably have to figure out some way to raise taxes and plan for this if that many people were going to use it. It is possible that the town could adjust the eligibility criteria with an annual town meeting vote. But it's not really beneficial to the town to make more people eligible for this, okay? It's not, it's a net law, let's put it this way, it's at least a deferral, okay? And the town doesn't get its money in that year, and town's gonna have to figure out how to deal with this. Only a few people is not a big deal. 100 or more would be a big deal, okay? For the taxpayer, the current eligibility criteria of $20,000 income is, I use the phrase unrealistic.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, right, I chose not to use ridiculous because I couldn't spell it, okay? The 8% interest rate is relatively high. You can get a mortgage now for 6.5 something or other, you know? And the third thing is you lose the circuit breaker credit of $2,560 a year. That's a cost of over $50,000 over 20 years if the circuit breaker doesn't go up, okay? And increases your effective tax rate by 41%. That's something you want to do, all right? And it requires signing a lien against your home. As we've talked about, this has an emotional impact on people who worked all their lives to get their house free and clear, okay? There are some rules and laws that protect you, but it's still a little bit of an emotional issue. Our recommendations, I believe, from our discussion are as follows. This is not attractive to the town, okay? The tax is not paid to be raised by charging others, okay? It's not scalable. And it's not attractive to the taxpayer because it excludes you from using circuit breaker refundable tax credits. It raises your taxes, all right? And I think Deborah kind of hit the nail on the head relative to this. I think I paraphrased it, Deborah. Taxpayers should only consider this as an emergency, very limited use approach. We do not recommend you consider this as an ongoing.
automatic.
Right.
Yeah.
It should be only emergency, all right? So that's the first point here. Are there any questions on this? Because afterwards I'm going to ask for basically a vote of approval on each one or all of them together, however you want to do it. Are there any questions about this? Okay. Took a little more time to go over tonight, okay, than we did last time. Next point is a reverse mortgage. Basically what this is you go to a bank, you take out what's called a reverse mortgage, in which you can draw out money each year up to a total maximum, which typically has to do with some percentage of your equity in the home. And you can continue to do that and have the interest and the repayment deferred until you move / sell or expire, okay? So those living in Lancaster for 10 years, you've got significant equity in the home. You should really think about this. Don't move or not pay medical expenses because you don't have the cash in the bank right now. You've got the cash in this beautiful home you've been living in. You know, this is an approach. You can take some out, okay? And allows you to continue living in your current home, and you can still apply for the circuit breaker. Well, that's a big win, you know? It's the right thing to do. The cons are there can be some high initial fees. Sometimes people charge on the order of $10,000 is what my research shown. And the interest rate can be high on the order of 9%. It does require signing a mortgage / a lien against the home. And in that instance or that aspect, it's similar to the tax deferral, okay? Because the banks can want to get their money back at some point, all right? It reduces the net proceeds of the home when sold or you move or transfer to heirs. Okay, so you do eventually have to pay this back. All right. And what was unclear, I haven't been able to track this down better, is I found some documents that say this is a quote non-recourse loan, so that if you default or you get up to the maximum or this kind of thing, the taxpayer cannot be loosed or forced to sell the home. However, Heidi had a neighbor who did lose the house. I don't know if there were special circumstances there, we just don't know. So we have two facts there. I at least labeled it as unclear, and this is something, if people are going to look at it, taxpayers should consider discussing a reverse mortgage with financial, tax. I got tax advisors in there twice. Something's wrong, I'll figure that out. As well as family, because the house will be worth less when you transfer to them or sell it at the end and that kind of thing. And your family should be aware of it, okay? It's the senior's home and their asset, but at least you should discuss this with we recommend you discuss it with your family so there aren't big surprises. Any questions on the reverse mortgage? I'll figure out what this,
I have a question.
Sure.
You can only qualify for something like this. You have to own the whole home. You can't still be paying a mortgage, right?
no,
Which one? For the 41A?
Reverse mortgage.
You're talking, I don't know about that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
For the
I
40
know about the 41A.
Mhm.
This is a bank. This is
Yeah,
something
you
that
just
we,
go to your local
yeah,
bank.
you go to your
Yeah.
local bank. That's a discussion you have with your local bank. And your, like he said, your financial guy, you want to talk to them. I have nothing to do with reverse mortgages.
right, and
So you might be right in that it has to be already paid for, but you could always take out like a equity line of credit or something like that.
Oh, okay,
to pay your
equity line,
taxes
yeah.
Right,
with that, then add to your existing mortgage versus
Right.
the reverse mortgage. Typically, I would guess is you do own it outright and then
I would
you're
think.
taking a loan against
If
it
if
because,
you own it outright, I believe it's cleaner.
yeah.
I believe that any good, smart lawyer slash bank would figure out a way how to put your current indebtedness together with any part of a reverse mortgage and figure out how to do this.
Mhm.
Okay, so I don't think that should be a blocking point. All right,
Okay.
you should at least have that discussion. All right, and let the finance people and the lawyers work it out. Okay?
Mhm.
Any other questions about this reverse mortgage approach? And particularly what I want you to do is be comfortable with our recommendation. This is what we would tell the select board and tell seniors. This is what we suggest you consider. And I tried to word it here. We're not telling them you must do this or you should do this.
Mhm.
We're saying you should consider. And here are some people you should talk to. Okay? But we're trying to raise this level of understanding and awareness so that seniors don't struggle unnecessarily, not realizing the asset capability they have in this beautiful home around them, that they've taken care of all the stuff.
Mhm.
Okay? Any questions on that? Because I'll ask for a vote particular on this in particular about the recommendations, that this is our position as a committee.
And you can get a reverse mortgage as a lump sum or a monthly payment.
I think there are various things you can do. You can probably take out some amount of money up front, and then you can take out some amount of money each year. I don't know. I believe you can have different amounts taken out each year. You know, you'd have to talk to the individual bank and figure it out. I don't really have the specifics, but I believe you can, any good bank and legal advisor could figure out how to structure this for you.
So it's just varies.
Hmm?
It just varies.
Yes, right, it just varies. And there are other things. Home equity line of credit is another thing you can do. I didn't put that on the list because that's not particularly for seniors. This is more something for seniors. I don't know, I'd have to check. Did you make a note? I need to check if there's an age restriction on the reverse mortgage. I just don't know. There is an age restriction on the tax deferral. Yeah, I don't know either. Okay. All right. So any other questions on that?
I would probably think not. I would probably think not, because it's mortgage. It's, you know,
It's,
I
yeah,
mean, it's no different than somebody in their 40s loses a spouse and is stuck and needs to take that equity out, and this is the only way to do it. So can't imagine, but who knows?
There-
Investopedia says 62 or older.
62 or older. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking there's some federal, it has to do with some federal guidelines and there's some federal laws around this.
Yeah.
Made me think, okay, so it's,
Huh.
all right. Okay, so that's a con, if you will, have to be 62 or older.
But it does say that if the home value changes, or the borrower lives longer than expected, you won't be responsible for the paying lender difference because there's a mortgage insurance built into it to manage that.
Okay, and this is part of what I read, and sometimes the phrase non-recourse loan is also used.
Okay, so the insurance would pick up.
The difference, right,
Gotcha.
okay. Versus, I think as Deb has commented before, in the tax deferral situation, there's a maximum limit you can go up to. If you hit this limit, then you can't borrow any more
Can't go.
money, okay? And here, you can't borrow any more money, but at least you're protected, I guess, is the way I interpret that. Okay, so that's reverse mortgage. Any questions on that? You comfortable with the basic recommendation of the committee? Okay. And then use of proceeds from investments. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but if you deal with the average market return on the S&P 500, it's been 10% a year. If you put 135K into an S&P
You have a lot of
ETF
years to
fund,
pay your taxes with.
right, it will pay your taxes for you basically for many, many years. You can do this for 19 years with no loss of principal, which means if someone was 65 today, because they moved in here 10 years ago, they would be 85. And, you know, they would still have the same amount of money invested and it's paid their taxes this whole time.
And that's assuming that the S&P remains at the current rate and there is no guarantee and you could lose it all. You could lose, you know,
Right.
135, you know, if we had a market that tanked. So
Right.
there's that risk
Right.
as well.
So under cons, point 2 is what she said, okay? Stock market volatility declines in particular years could cause problems meeting cash flow requirements. You know, and parenthetically, yeah, you could lose it all. Highly doubtful, but, you know, it is possible, and you need, again, for seniors with investment assets, this approach could be viable. Taxpayers should review this option with tax and financial advisors. All right, and we're just trying to, it's, you know, it's kind of just one step removed from how hard we pushed circuit breaker. We're trying to make people aware of the assets they have in their home that's all around them.
Mhm.
Okay? All right, any questions then on these 3 approaches? Because we said we would look at tax deferral when we did our last presentation to the select board. And this is in effect our assessment of tax deferral and similar kinds of things that allow a senior to convert home equity into spendable cash to meet either tax or other needs. Okay? Any questions or comments? Because then I'll ask for either a vote on each one or vote on all 4 being appreciated value calculation or estimate, the tax deferral summary, reverse mortgage, and the investment with proceeds from investments. Any last questions or comments?
I thought there were only 3 of them.
There are only 3 of them. The other one is the one on top, which is in
Yeah.
effect the introduction that
Right.
says you do have, point 6 is you do have, equity in your home that you could use, and then these other 3 are ways to use it. The first one is kind of make people aware that you have, equity.
Mhm.
Because many people don't feel they do, and they think of themselves, and a phrase has been used as house poor. We want people to think of themselves not as house poor, but as house rich, having lived in Lancaster all these years.
Mhm.
And this is the way you can then make access to that. Okay? So, how do you want to do this? Do you want to take a vote on each one of these points, or do you want to?
No, I think I'd like to make a motion that we accept all 3 as noted in the.
Okay, would you put the other one in, the appreciated value, making people aware of that?
Yeah, okay, we can, all
So the
4
4.
then, all 4,
Okay,
you know, as stated and explained, you know, I think that's fine.
okay, all right. So Susan has made a motion. Is there a second? Heidi seconded. Is there discussion?
We don't recommend them all equally.
we recommend them with the words that we put in here.
Right, the
Yeah.
pros and cons of each one.
Yeah, the
Talk to
people
your
will get the
tax
pros and
advisor.
cons.
Yeah.
We in effect give them that, here's the whole thing, pros and cons.
Yeah.
There is no perfect free lunch,
No,
but some have, and some have more pros and less cons than others.
Mhm.
And depending on your situation is why you should talk to an advisor who may recommend one or the other in your situation. Okay? All right, so any other comments? Okay. With that, then, would you call the roll call to vote on these 4 items that we take as our position on these items?
Deborah,
Yes,
Susan,
Yes,
Roy,
Yes.
Sheila,
yes.
Dick,
yes,
I will also go with yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. All right. So, all right, there's that item. I'll just ask the question. Does anyone think of anything else that we should, that we should suggest, which is a way to convert, get access to money that we haven't talked about so far? Talked about circuit breaker and all that sort of stuff. There's a whole bunch of other, exemptions you can apply for. Yes, assume, that we would have that list someplace. This is getting access to the equity that's accrued in your home. Any other general approach? We've talked about other programs where you can do work for tax work off.
Mhm.
Assume what we've covered all of that stuff. Is there anything else that we've missed?
well, I mean, other than like this elderly and disabled tax fund, right, that we have a checkbox on the back of our form. So the thing that I would recommend is that the town institute or this would be put together by the select board, they would have to do it. So there's $9,000 that's sitting in an account, and it was developed in 1999 to get a committee and to dole out money for the people that low income. And whatever that criteria is determined by that committee, but the committee was never formed. So there's this $9,000 sitting there with no way to execute it.
So can we make a recommendation to form that committee?
Yes,
Make
that's-
some freaking decisions instead of waiting, I don't know, 25 years to do
Right.
anything.
So that's what I'm saying is I'm gonna give you this packet. This is,
Okay.
information on it. And this is the town of Natick that has an example. Northborough has another example of, this is something that the state does. It's it's like, the tax work off. It's the same thing. They have a program, and, this is kind of like a summary specifically to Lancaster. And then I attached with you the, thing on the back. So the only recommendation is that we would ask the select board to develop this committee so that this money could be doled out, basically. That would be my only recommendation.
Okay,
in that
Deborah?
packet, is there a copy of the, vote?
It's not this one, I mean, there was,
As long as there's a copy of the vote in there so that they don't go digging for it.
no, there's, the
Okay.
data is there in
Okay.
that thing. I mean, this is the original law that is
That the
chapter
town
6.
voted.
We voted this back in 1999, I think that's the year. So this document describes all of that.
Okay.
But all we have to do is basically just say, the Tax Fairness Committee would like to recommend that this committee be formed and that this money be doled out. And if not, let's dissolve the committee and dissolve the fund if it's not the intention to use it.
Okay.
Because they're saying that the funds are put into the general, it's a special account in the general treasury.
Okay, does it have a
So-
specific name for this committee or?
It's called the Elderly and Disabled Tax Fund.
But does this committee have a special name?
It's elderly and or disabled. That's the program.
That's the
It's
program.
called the Elderly and Disabled Taxation Fund. And it's a voluntary checkoff for donations that the
Okay.
state mandated this Title 9, Chapter 60, Section 3D. So this is the clause that the state has. Our town developed it in 1989, never did anything with it. The
Okay.
committee was never formed, nothing ever happened to it. but yet people, because they added it on the back of your tax bill,
Mm.
people would check off, okay,
So
25
there's
bucks.
money in there
25
that
bucks.
hasn't been used.
So it's not much, it's $9,000, that's basically one person's tax bill, right? You know, I mean,
Right,
so it's not much, but either dissolve it or form it.
okay.
You know, that's what I would add to our recommendation, you know, that's all.
Could I make one other suggestion?
Mhm.
Rather than have to form another committee, and the whole volunteering process and the appointing process takes time, okay? Why don't we, as the Tax Fairness Committee, make a recommendation to the select board? about
We
what to
are an
do?
ad hoc, completely different committee.
Yeah, I
We
understand we
cannot-
are.
I mean, I would not.
There may be
recommend
some
that.
legal issues. No, you don't.
I
wanna go
would
that
not
route?
recommend, not at all.
Not at all, no.
Okay.
Because the people, because the requirements are, you have to have the town treasurer, you
Okay.
have to have the
All right.
chairman of the the town, it has to be the town treasurer, the
Okay,
chairman of the board of assessors,
okay,
and 3 residents. So we
Okay.
are
You
not even
convinced me.
in that
And I'm
committee,
not the chairman of the board right now.
so that's
All right,
not,
you
it's
could-
not
all right, you
even.
convinced me. I was trying to do, yeah, okay.
You know,
can't
I
do-
agree, and, you know, and you know, so I just think the money's sitting there, let's do something with it, it's only $9,000, dissolve it, you know, ask the Board of Selectmen to make a decision, investigate it, make
So
a decision.
I move that based on this
Yeah.
information that Susan's brought forward, that the Tax Fairness Committee in its next report to the board, select board, recommends that the select board either form this committee to allocate these funds
Right,
or finds a suitable way to disperse the funds.
right.
Okay, something like that, all right? Is there a second? Heidi seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, with that, Heidi, would you call the roll on the motion?
Deborah,
Yes,
Susan,
Yes,
Roy,
Yes,
Sheila,
Yes.
Dick,
yes,
Heidi, yeah.
okay, so the motion carries 6-0-0. Okay,
so then the other recommendation that I would make as an alternative is, on Friday, we're going to have, Adam come to the LCC Center and talk about the tax, the work off.
Adam.
Adam from the assessor's office.
Oh, okay,
So
fine.
that is, something that we talked about with Kelly to put on to inform the public. That was one of our action items. And
Okay.
we said we would table it, you know, because we were working on the SME part so hard. We said, let's just table that for later. Well, we're at the later part because SME is now tabled. And so we're checking off down the list. What are all the things that we can think of? So, you know, this is one, and then the tax work off is another. So I would like to see, you know, right now, the dollar amount is $20,000 for this tax work off that the town, the select board, and finance committee allocate every year for that. There are about $57,000 left over from the last like 5 years worth of dollars that have not been utilized. So I'd like that the select board would roll that money back into general funding, you know, into cash, because the requirement or the law of this tax work off is that the chief financial person needs to request that these funds get converted back to general fund. And that has not happened for the last 5 years. Any money left over, they have not gone into that account and specifically said, we request this money coming back to us. So there's $57,000, as I understand it, okay? Like, I'm not the person behind the scenes doing all this, but as I understand it, that money has not been put back into the system. But if you look at the $20,000 per year, it's not even being utilized right now. And
The total amount is not.
well, the total, right, the total $20,000, you know, half the people sign up, they do about half the work. they don't have a full sign up, it's not being used. But if you allocate $20,000, it roughly is 13 people. Because your $1,500 is the max. Next year, it's gonna go to 2,000. So I'd like that $20,000 allotment to be increased as potential available funds. Maybe to 40,000, let's just say double it, that kind of thing, because this is a way that citizens have an opportunity to reduce their tax cost by working it off. And I feel very strongly that there's a benefit to the town. Restocking library book at $15 an hour might be cheaper than $25 an hour that we're paying the employee to do that works at the library. The social piece of it too is very important, and that's oftentimes they'll work at a job, they'll enjoy it so much, they'll continue doing it for free, so they're getting the social piece of it. So I can't recommend it enough. But there is a cost to the town in that, we're giving them $1,500, we're giving $2,000. But I feel like if this program is effective, we can find other ways to utilize these citizens' resources. Granted, you can't take a job that's a union job and there's all these criteria, but thinking outside the box and being creative, there are many ways, programs. Somebody's a Stampin' Up, consultant, and we pay somebody some fee to LCC for some program. They could pay this person to do that, and we can be creative. So my recommendation I would like to see not only that 57,000 money get back into the general funds, but next year maybe bump it up to $40,000 so that more people can have access to it, expand the program. And then the second part of that is that, and this is the wave of a hand with the select board. So it's not anything that needs to go to the state. They can decide in their budget to add this, to the budget for say 40,000. Because the dollar amount is going from 1,500 to 2,000 that somebody can get work off on. But secondarily is that they allow a substitute person to do the work for them. So the biggest complaint I'm hearing is, oh, so-and-so's on oxygen, so-and-so's, on a walker, they can't do this work. But there are able-bodied people that might be willing to work for them, neighbor, friend, grandson, whatever, and we would have to work really hard and be very effective in how we structured that, because that makes it very hard for people who are doing the work. Say they're donating at the library, or they're working at the library and they're putting the books on the shelf. So now you have to manage a third-party person that's doing the work. And that management is why that when we did it for Lancaster, we didn't allow that option, but the state allows that option. Lancaster and the select board chose not to allow that. So I think unraveling, digging deeper and allowing people, figuring out a way to manage this. Currently, the assessor's office, it used to be the senior center managed the program. And there was financial information that was disclosed. So there was a criteria for how much you made that made that change. Now, it doesn't matter how much you make. If you meet the criteria, you're over 60, whatever the criteria is, the rules are, you don't have to disclose how much you make.
Okay, there's no income.
There's no income requirements for this whatsoever. So, and this is all chosen by the select board. In other words, anybody can make us, Kate or, whoever can make a request and the select board can vote on it and boom, it's done. So it's not something you have to go back to the state, but this is an opportunity. This would give people easily a way to get next year, get $2,000 off their taxes. But it takes work and effort and time by the town to implement if we allowed a substitute worker. and
A
how
proxy
some,
worker.
a proxy worker, right? And managing all those people, that's using resources that the town, whoever is assigned to that right now, assessor's office has to do that. They have to find and create the job. They have to manage the people that are in it. It's a lot of work. And I recognize that this is not an easy task. But I think the benefits to the seniors and the program itself could be really beneficial. So I personally would like to see several of these options available or some combination where, you know, perhaps Health and Human Resources could be the manager of it, go back, bring the program back to, for instance, LCC, because they, you know, they can manage that, I think, a little bit easier than, because you're gonna have to create these jobs. You're gonna have to make a list of what's available. And that isn't easy, because you don't know what the criteria of what somebody can do. Like, they might be computer savvy, right? So you can give them a harder job. And, you know, somebody else, you know, they don't mind digging ditches. So, okay, go work in the lawn department, in the DPW department. So there's other jobs, but that has to all be crafted, not take a union job, you know, all of that.
Okay. Do you have a motion or wording for motion you want here, or what do you want to do next, I guess?
I guess, you know, to expand the work write-off program and to modify. So I can, I mean, I can write something, like, we can talk about, like, what do we want to make as a recommendation? I'm just throwing out all of these
Okay.
options. So I guess for discussion, you know, what do we want to recommend? Do we think it's worth it to go like up to 40,000 because the increase? Because if you go to 20,000 or $2,000, then that's only 10 people. So right now they're at 13. So if you go a year from now you've got less people that are eligible for the 2,000 than currently. So I would like a recommendation to bump up the dollar amount. What that is, I don't know, you know, whatever we decide.
Okay.
And then do we want to recommend an alternative person to do their work off, to allow more?
For legally for proxy.
Right. So is that something that we think we ought to recommend? And do we want to recommend taking it from assessors maybe to another department that might be easier to facilitate?
The decision to put it in the assessment department was made by the select board, is that, don't know, it's
Some
not.
proposal that was
It
made?
was made by the town administrator, because the person running the prior
Right.
Department.
was not handling it and giving application approvals to people who did not qualify for it. The assessor's office didn't know, because the assessor's office is responsible to give the funds from the overlay account to be spent.
Mm-hmm.
So we needed to know what hours were worked, how much money these people are gonna get. We were getting applications approved stating someone who lived at Bigelow Gardens and doesn't have a real estate property.
Right.
We
Yeah.
were
So
getting
they don't even qualify.
that, they didn't even qualify income or asset at that time. So it was a decision of the town administrator to take it out of their hands and put it back into ours. So originally when it started, it was in the assessor.
Yeah, I guess my observation is I'm a little reluctant to say how it should be managed. I think we give the responsibility to the select board / town administrator, because they may move it around for different reasons, you know, and deal with some of these issues. So I think we leave it to the select board to delegate, and to the town administrator to delegate how it's managed. I am in general supportive of the proxy aspect of this, and I also personally am in supportive of expanding the amount of money. You know, that's available, given that we're going up to $2,000 per person, et cetera.
I mean, select board can decide what that dollar amount is. It just should go up.
Right, well, my suggestion here would be that we, and I would suggest you, Susan, since you have the most knowledge and, you know, interest in this, write up a draft motion for the next meeting to, you know, to cover all these issues, and we get any other input from people to give you input for that. And at the next meeting, you come back with a motion, you know, for what we should do in this area. Does that make sense? Other people have comments?
I don't think I need to, I think if we just talk about these two things, change to allow proxy and expand for additional funds. Our recommend,
I wanna add that every year, whatever doesn't get used gets automatically rolled back because it's stupid to have it sitting there.
I know.
That,
but that's an
Unfortunately,
administrative thing. That's
And
somebody's job to go do it.
unfortunately, the way the law is written, the money comes out of the overlay account. It's not like a fund that you can just switch around. That,
But we
I
can't-
understand that, but it's up to 20,000. You can't just say, okay, out of that 20,000, we spent 10, so I want that 10. It's not the way the fund works, as I explained. So if you want that money, the selectman will ask the finance director to request from the assessors money out of the overlay account to go into the overlay reserve.
Right, and they should be
And
doing that
then-
on their own, like they should be.
It's not, no, because that's not the way the law is written for the overlay. I understand what you're thinking. If money is appropriated for that, but it's not truly, well, it is appropriated, it's not.
Yeah, right.
But it's appropriated in a fund that, oh, I don't know how to explain it. It's not a standard fund. It's not a fund that can be played for. This fund is for real estate abatements. The way the law was written, that working program fund comes out of this overlay.
but can we not make a recommendation
You
that
can make a recommendation to ask the finance director if they will if request from the assessors to transfer out X amount of dollars. If that wants to be a standard every year of what's left, then that's up to the selectmen.
it just,
Right,
but to me, the issue is that clearly we have these things that get set up and then nothing happens with
But it's
them.
not,
So, no, I understand that. I'm
No.
not saying that I get to make a decision.
No,
What I'm
no,
saying
no.
is that I would like to recommend that they just put that on their freaking agenda
To
to do it,
review it and make a
to review
decision.
it and make a decision so that it doesn't just sit
Right,
there.
I think something like that would be a good addition because yes, I think there is money in other funds that has been allocated, not used, and we don't have good visibility to what remains in those accounts and what the sum of all that money is.
Dick,
Okay.
what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. I'm going to defer on this because I think Susan is that it's an oversimplification, Susan, or what I'm about to say, but money's not spent generally wind up back in free cash. That's an oversimplification. Where did you get the information that this fund was keeping the money year after year after year and growing?
Because Deb was able to get the summary of how much was left for the last 5 years for each year,
And what is that figure?
like 57,000
And is
over the
that
last 4 or 5 years.
a reserve account?
no, it is not.
It's this special fund that's specific for assessors paying the taxes with that money.
No, it's the overlay account, which I'm sure the finance committee has heard about. The overlay account has for abatements exemptions. The work program funds come out of that. The overlay account is the responsibility of the Board of Assessors.
I'm really going to look deeper into this because at the present time, Susan, I cannot give you an answer that I know anything at all about this. So I'll have to start from scratch, and thank you for initiating it.
Yeah, that's all. I just, the funds are there, nobody's looking at it, it just sits there, that's what I wanted to address. Is
What does concern me is something you said. If the funds are there because they weren't used, that means they aren't being needed which means that possibly the working in place of someone else is needed to make the funds be in demand. I mean, if they are being used, why do we need to increase it to 40,000?
Right, so.
Unless for some reason you've initiated more people to try and do this work.
Right, so part of it is just like circuit breaker, it's creating awareness. Half the town doesn't know about it. We're only getting Kelly and Health and Human Resources and the LCC to actually make a program this Friday, which I would encourage Dick, if you could make it to. It's at 10 o'clock in the morning at LCC, and basically Adam is going to talk about this program and how you apply. It's a very simple form to apply. And they're not asking your financial information. So a lot of people just, number one, aren't even aware of this program existing. Secondly, is there has to be enough jobs or enough positions for people to be filled. So not everybody that applies is guaranteed a job or gets a job. So I know of several people who applied and were never granted any job. And so there's this image or this stigma that jobs aren't being created. Now, Kate has said, I want every department is supposed to come up with 2 jobs that could be used by that department. But unless the person is that's her request. She stated this. But the problem is that they don't come to the assessor's office and say, oh, I have these 2 jobs. That's the request. It doesn't mean that that's where that those departments stepped up to do the job. So these positions, some of them need a management tool to manage and create positions based upon perhaps what somebody's ability is that applies. So we don't have any records on how many people were applied and how many people were denied. All we have is records of how many people did the program, and some of them, like I said, got halfway through. If you look at the numbers, they got halfway through and they're like, I don't want to do it anymore. They just stopped working. So unless you submit your hours, then you don't get that tax credit. You don't just get $1,500. You have to work it off, submit your hours. The library director has to sign off that you were there. It's a real big challenge and a lot of work to implement this. But the benefit, I think, is there to the senior citizen to be able to get a tax write-off in an effective way. Minimum wage, $15 an hour, and it's not a freeload like just hand over, okay, this person makes low income, and you're just giving them some tax money for free. They're working for it. So, I think that the town gets something out of it, and I think taxpayers feel good about that too. So, but that there is a big management of this picture, and there needs to be funds available. There needs to be somebody to manage it, and opening up positions and creating positions and working with individuals on a sort of an individual level that based upon what their skill set is, that they could be, a job could be created for them. So that is a lot of work. And right now it's like, the program exists, it limps along, people do it, but it's not, it could be better is what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, is that I think we can make some modifications and look at, putting more effort into this program.
Let me comment on it could be better, because one of the stories that you shared with me is that in some other local town. Okay, an individual, why don't you go ahead and explain?
So, I talked to the Shirley Water District guy. He used to manage the town, used to be the financial director for the town of Air. And he had all these examples. There was a real estate agent that retired, and she could dig into title searches and things like that we would pay somebody out of our, out of real funds from us at a much higher level to go do a title search when they could get this retired real estate person and she could do the title search for people. So, that was one example. There was, a guy who wrote a program that saved them, hundreds and hundreds of hours because he wrote this program. He's a software computer programmer that retired, and he was able to write this program that was a skill set that we would have paid somebody a lot more money on, to write code. And he was able to do this simple task. For him, it was a simple task. And at $15 an hour, so he had nothing but rave reviews. Like, that's the best program the state has. Like, he just went on and on. So, I mean, Kevin Johnson will talk your ear off about it. So other towns are doing an effective job with this. And I'm just saying we could do better. That's all.
Okay. I'm hearing several aspects that could be explored a little bit, and I'm thinking that it would be good if you and Dick said he'd go investigate the financial aspect of it. What I'm hearing between the words you're saying, Susan, and what picture that's coming to my mind is it sounds like it would be good to get a management report at the end of every year that talks about how many positions were created, how much money was spent, what the town achieved, what got done. And I'm going to put in this more creative way of fitting not just what Lancaster needs. Each one of the departments says, I have a need for this many hours doing this kind of work, filing things in the library, that kind of thing. But also a little bit of people being able to share, I have this background and experience.
Yeah, it's on the form. You can list what your skill set is.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying is people list that and then a position's created, like perfect example, so a position is created that was needed that, people want, yeah. So,
Okay.
I mean, I can work with Dick on it and dig into it. Numerous times the Council on Aging has asked for this information and has not been able, for years now, has not been able to get this information. It's not accessible easily.
Okay, well then, all right.
There is a report that's generated every year and it lists the specific people, and this is public records, but getting that, it's not like on the internet. You have to specifically request this. And again, it's work for the assessor's office to go pull that all out, do all that. And it's more, what I'm saying is it's more than what the assessors has time for. So, that's part of the problem. That's why I'm suggesting having it go to like Health and Human Resources, because they can manage this kind of a people thing and questions and pull that out in a different way.
Okay.
That's the only reason I was suggesting that as an
Okay,
option.
and I understand.
So.
I'm just reluctant to, from the outside,
Right.
tell a organizational structure and a senior manager how to manage their overall responsibilities. I think we indicate this is the work that needs to be done, that kind of thing. We ask them to take responsibility for it and provide a report yearly.
To who?
Well, it sounds like COA, okay, and we should ask for tax fairness and the select board, I would think, are the three that come to my mind.
But is tax fairness, if we ask this, tax fairness may not exist in a year. So I'm not sure.
Start with that. If we don't exist, they don't have to send us.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, they can save the postage.
Yeah.
Right. But in the short term, we have some interest. As long as we're still here, we have some interest in this. Okay, and we'd like to see this program expanded. Okay? All right, so if you and Dick would give us some brief report and some action, okay, for next meeting.
Okay.
All right? Dick, any last comments there? Any other comments? I'll take Dick's comments and any other comments.
No comments. I'll work with Susan directly and we'll put it on the finance committee agenda shortly.
Okay, all right, thank you, Dick. Appreciate it. It's always helpful to have a man from the finance committee.
Yes, I think so.
The senior grand exalted financial icon of Lancaster on our committee, Wonderful. Thank you, Dick. All right. Okay. All right, then moving along, at the last meeting we had, Deborah shared some comments and some information about how assessment was done, and began to talk about the fact that there's a assessing company who does a lot of the assessment work for the board of assessors, the assessors department, and a few other things. After that, a couple questions came to my mind, and these were just questions that I sent to Deborah. And Deborah, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at them.
I just looked at it, but I don't have my phone, so I don't have the questions in front of me. And before I start responding to that, I wanted to bring something up from last meeting. When Susan gets back.
Okay,
I just wanna bring something up.
all right, fine, we will have a brief hold here then, or temporary recess.
Do you have the questions, Jack?
I have them on my computer, I can probably get to them. Hang on one second. Do you want me to put them?
On the charger.
Hmm?
I left my phone on the charger at home and then charged it home.
Yeah, hang on one second. Here we go. Do you want? Okay, if I just put them up there, do you want to look? Sure, okay, all right, hang on a second, let me go to Zoom. I think this is it. There we go.
Since we're having a break recess, and I walk down Main Street pretty much every day, and wildly curious how much it costs to put on the kind of addition that one of the neighbors down the street was doing. She's like, out of the whole.
Oh, back,
Yeah.
the lighthouse, just as the corner, I'm not sure if she's putting on a garage or a whole addition.
It's not a garage,
It's an addition.
It's an
it's
addition.
an addition, because there's no garage. Like you said, we walk up every day. I thought a garage was a terrible idea, because then she would have no yard, so I'm hoping that it's an addition.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just saying.
No, I'm just
Oh,
saying,
okay.
like, that was my personal view. And it's attached to the house.
Yep.
And there are windows and doors and stuff like that. So I think they were gonna have like sliders and French doors or something. That's what it looks like based on everything.
That's a very old, beautiful house. One of the assessors on that
Yeah, question,
years ago.
just for general indication. If somebody does that kind of work, has to take out a building permit.
Absolutely.
Does a building permit have an estimate of the value?
Cost. That's how the building inspector charges on it.
Okay, so
By estimate
you
of
have,
cost.
you have an estimate of the cost, and then maybe at some point you can tell us what happens in terms of when that remodeling effort gets done. How is the assessed value of the home then adjusted based on cost, based on,
It's not based on building permit cost.
it's based on,
It's based on the calculations within the system. So say, for
Okay.
example, she's putting on 1,000 square foot livable area.
okay?
She's putting a second floor. The principal assessor would go out, measure that structure. Look at what's gonna be in there, if there's gonna be more bathrooms, if there's a basement, if they're finishing this. If they put a fireplace in, if it's air conditioned, what type of heat's going in there. All those things go into the system and the system runs the cost, and that's where the value comes.
So, okay, so the system being the program run by this,
Program that we have.
is it run that, Lancaster has, or is it by this program? We have-
Lancaster has the program.
Okay,
It's a DOR, or it used to be Department of Revenue's program, but they stopped running it. So they put their contract out to another organization, and we've been using that program for the last 5 years.
all right,
Cost tables are Marshall and Swift, which every state in the country uses. Those are installed in the system. So, yeah, that's how. it
Okay.
works.
all right. We took a brief recess. Okay, calling us back to order.
So
Deborah had one point she wanted to bring up from the last meeting.
bring up something from the last meeting. And first off, when I
Yes.
mentioned the value that
Go ahead.
was untaxed, the exempt property value, the total value, no one asked me what the impact on taxes were. What revenue we're losing, which is fine. But you did raise a point. You said that there were no services being given to the prisoner. And it sort of took me by surprise. I was driving home and I'm thinking, why would you ask anything else? No one knows what the exempt organizations are. Nobody knows how many exempt organizations there are. But every single organization uses fire, police, ambulance. They use all the services, but they're not paying any taxes. So I wanted to get that across.
Right, and would we also say that they use snow plowing? Because, you know, we have to plow the road at least
You have to
past
plow the
their,
road, correct,
past their
absolutely,
place.
absolutely.
And depending how much grounds and
Frontage or
connections
what-
to the stuff. You know, I believe we plowed all of the roads within, Atlantic Union College down here,
Or in the roads on the outer side,
and
yes.
roads on the other side.
Yeah.
Now, to some extent, we all use the road, Main
On the
Street,
outer
go up
side.
and down, on the outer side. The inside stuff, no, and, you know, it would have been nice if there were taxpayers there who also contributed paying for plowing that
Well,
part of
I
Route
mean,
70. Okay,
For
but yeah.
example, you've got the Forestry Foundation. Forestry has over, is it 238 acres? They've got
Forest.
paths. Forestry Foundation,
a-
New England Forestry Foundation.
This is
got
a
several-
tax exempt
Yep,
organization. Okay.
organization. They've got several properties in Lancaster. A lot of them are walking paths.
Mhm.
If you have a brush fire department's gonna go. If you have somebody fall and hurt themselves, ambulance gonna go.
Right, right.
We had somebody lost in one of our nonprofit organizations. They actually got off the path and ended up, they didn't come back. They called the fire department, the rescue, the ambulance, and they were all out looking, and they finally found the person.
Good.
So the services are being used. Now, you've got a couple of organizations that have students. Those students are living students. Are they educating them on campus, or are they sending them to your school district? Does anybody know that?
The Perkins uses their own.
Okay.
RFK was using the town, like I know that the kids went to middle school there. So that would be, my understanding is RFK, those students did go to the high school. So you're right about that. If they're not paying taxes on as a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Now, they've been incorporated with
With
Perkins now,
Perkins.
so, you know,
I don't know,
Perkins
yeah.
was, their whole school system was the students go to that school, which they control and pay whatever the teachers and so forth out of their budget.
Right.
But
I
my
know
understanding is
Perkins-
RFK would be a different story.
I can tell you for sure they call the.
Can you speak up with this?
Yes, I can tell you they use the police resources a lot because they are there across the street. Oh,
Right, so Perkins does use the, you know, and if there's a fire, they would use
Oh,
those
absolutely.
resources, so.
So does
But like,
Kennedy
but like the National Guard, you know, I don't know, do we go to them if there's a fire? Do we go to them if there's a, you know, something going on? I don't know that.
No.
So, but it's the ratio of how many funds are being used to the amount of land there is, you know, so it's less than what, it's not zero, maybe, like, if you're saying you have to go into the forest and rescue them, like if our funds aren't being used in that forest other than for a fire or a rescue, you know, is there really a cost to, like, if it's just unused property? It counts in terms of square mileage, but like, how much of those resources really being extracted, you know? And we all know that, you know, we're at like 45% or something of the town doesn't, that, you know, we don't collect any money from,
It's
and
right,
revenue from,
It's
so
not taxable
that's
property.
absolutely true.
right, and you raise a valid question,
But-
what are the cost of the services that the town
Yeah,
has
what's
to
the
render?
percentage, you
And
know? Like,
what
is it
actual-
1% on a forest piece of property on Blood Forest because there's nothing going on there except maybe a rescue or a fire? And is it 30%, you know, 30% because the police have to go to Perkins all the time, you know? I mean,
and is it?
I don't know.
Is it $14,000 to $16,000 for a student?
if
For
it's
kids who are
RK,
educated? And
right, if it's RK, you know, to go to those schools.
So,
I just wanted to bring that up.
No,
yeah,
no,
it's
I
an
think
interesting,
you're,
well, you bring up a very good, I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
yeah, no, it's a good point. That's the,
It just, like I said, it just threw me off when you said the prison, and I was like, well.
because I think they'd have their
But then
own.
driving home, I'm thinking, why would you ask anything else? The only thing you really know is the prison. You don't know whether Perkins pays taxes. You don't know whether RK pays any taxes or any of the other none, but they don't. So it's just, you know, I look at it this way, they have that resource. Whether they pay tax or not, they have that resource. No different than a taxpayer who lives in their home for 40 years and all of a sudden has a fire. You know, they paid their taxes all these years and the fire department did. That's all I'm putting out there, you know?
Right.
When you say 45% doesn't
I
pay
think-
taxes, do you mean of the people or
No,
of the?
Of the land,
Of the land,
Square
square footage of land,
acres,
Is not taxed.
is not taxable.
yeah, percentage of total acreage in the town.
Yeah, so like AUC, you know, didn't,
Wow.
now they're paying taxes because there's no
Right.
longer under the.
Right. And-
I heard
So
that.
the percentage probably has changed, but I kept always hearing 45.
It's been staying just under 50% right along, even though they left, Lancaster Conservation picked up a lot of land.
Oh, interesting.
So even though the college was taken off of the residential earlier, and then they took the buildings off, that percentage stayed around the same
When you say taken off the exemption list?
Correct.
Okay, fine.
and gone onto the tax rolls.
All right, fine, I now understand. And just to clarify for a minute, it would seem that the main services that a tax exempt property might wind up using would be, and I don't know that this isn't priority order, but it's just a list of the most probable ones. First, one would be ambulance. If someone gets hurt on the property, someone walking in the conservation land trips and falls and breaks their leg, you know, we gotta go in and get them and that kind of thing, okay? Police for various reasons, okay? Fire, if there's a fire there, town of Lancaster has to respond. The fact that it's tax exempt doesn't matter.
Right.
School, if there are children in that area, we have to educate them. And I'm gonna say DPW for both snow plowing and repairs. Because the road in front of their place that, you know, they're not paying taxes for, gets potholes, other problems could happen,
Well,
that kind of stuff.
But something like that, like if it's Main Street, you know, they're bordering, but we're not responsible for their roads that are in there.
Well, I don't
I
know
mean-
what happens to the roads that are like inside the Atlantic Union College.
That
The
was
old-
all private, that was all the
Yeah,
college
they-
I don't
responsibility.
all that.
I don't think we're
Yeah.
responsible for any of
George
that.
Hill Road was ours.
Yes.
Down by Trolley Stop, that's all ours, but in the campus, it was all AUC's
Yeah, like
responsibility.
parking
No different,
lots and.
no different than Southern New England Conference in the back.
Mhm.
That area between where, I can't even think of the name of the street, where, the post, I
Yeah.
know,
Where,
God, I can name them off, I'm getting old.
Prescott?
South
Prescott.
Lancaster Post Office.
Well, yeah, So that street that goes between there and, Sterling Road, they maintain that. Town doesn't, that's on their property.
Oh, okay, all right, so there's some roads that they do maintain, but
Which is
whatever,
on their, yeah, anything that's on their property.
Yeah.
all right, so there may be some, I'm gonna call it shared access roads.
Right, shared access.
Main Street would be a shared access road that if we didn't have a tax exempt property there on the other side of the street, they would be paying something to maintain that road. We don't get that revenue, we still have to maintain the road. Okay, right, okay. Anything else that jumps out at you? I mean. Heidi?
That seems like a high, 45% feels like a lot. What is average in other towns in Massachusetts?
I haven't
Any
looked at
idea?
other towns.
I'm just curious, like. It
They
feels
say
like a
in
lot.
the meetings, in the olden days, when I used to go to meetings, they seem to think that that was quite high. Lancaster does have a lot of exempts because we have a lot of schools. We have schools, churches, plus we have the Commonwealth owning a lot of land.
Right.
And the town of Lancaster. So in the olden days, we were. Now, I don't know. You know, you've got Sterling that's got a lot of Wachusett Reservoir. You've got Clinton that's got some of it. So I don't really know if we are on the top or in the middle or the end.
I
Very
look at like
historical. so-
Groton, and they have so much conservation land that it would almost, I would believe that they were probably in equal, 50% as well.
It could be.
And don't forget, we were given, I moved here in 1999. The MRE and Luther Burbank were built. The fire department was built. The police station was built. In exchange for the fact that they built the Shirley prison, the higher level prison, because they had Shirley prison there for a while, the lower level. And when that new prison was put in there with the special barbed wire, and people come, I don't know if you guys know, people come from around the world. I live across from it, so people talk about it. People come from around the world because of the way that prison was built is so high level, because that gets all the state prisoners, right? Not just your local town or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And the lockdown and the facility is so high end. But when that was built and agreed to, like, they took that land and they built that prison, we got all the infrastructure of building our fire department, our MRE school, because when all they had was Memorial School, behind here. And so we received something for that at that time. Now, I don't know what all of those buildings amounted to, but then we didn't have to spend infrastructure to build them and to build a new school for the MRE and Luther Burbank. We're building the high school now. Think of what the cost is there, but MRE and the fire department, like, all we had was that little fire department, the two fire departments, right? We had the little building down south, and then we had the one that they sold to the family, right? Or, yeah, maybe that used to be, I thought, a fire department.
Yes, it was.
Maybe it was, and then they turned it into an ambulance, but that's what we had. So think about how much nicer that our fire building is now, and the bays that they have, and the level of technology.
Okay.
So I don't
So
think people understand it. We got something for the fact that we were not going to tax them at the prison.
So we did get some one-time compensation
Correct.
for it. We
Correct.
didn't get any ongoing
Correct.
compensation for
Yes.
these other costs.
But if you look at spread over a long enough period of time, I mean, like I said, I don't know when that prison was built, so we'd have to Google that, but that's what I was understood. I mean, is that the same as you understood too?
You're talking about the Baranowski building?
Yes, the new prison, the
The
higher.
Baranowski
right,
building,
Yeah,
that's all in Lancaster.
right,
Yes.
right. So we got something.
It's probably what, 30 years old, maybe?
Maybe, yeah, because I've only been here 25, so that's
Maybe.
fine.
25, 30 years old.
Okay. All right. Was that the point you wanted to bring up? Okay, all right, fine.
In 1998.
Thank you.
Wow, so a year before I moved in 99.
Okay,
Oh, I was close.
all right. these are some questions that occurred to me after the meeting that I sent to Deborah, because something she said, kind of jolted my mind, and I said, okay. And I guess broadly what I'm asking for is, what's the impact of a house that's been fixed up and sold, all right? And it's had some level of fix up done to it. Some of it is relatively small that, the assessors would have almost no way of knowing. If you paint a room in your house, nobody knows about it. Okay, fine. That's relatively small, but there are other things that are bigger, new roofs, redo a bathroom, all these kinds of things that you're required to get permits for. And the assessors would have knowledge and information about it. And my question kind of broadly was, how does that set of upgrades impact the assessed value of the new home? And how is that then reflected as you think about assessing the value of the unsold homes that probably didn't have at least the major upgrades done to them? That's kind of the spirit of the question. So Deborah, thought, help educate us?
I'll go straight down to number 2.
Okay,
And new roofs or maintenance. That doesn't increase value.
okay, we still have to take out a permit for
You
them.
take out a permit, but that does not,
Doesn't increase value.
No. that's maintenance. Every 20 years, people have to do roofs, 20 or 30 years, so it's maintenance.
Oh, okay, I understand that. State law?
It might create it on the value on your market when you go to sell.
Yes,
Yeah.
Price, but as far as I said, our system of valuation is a standard system, and I didn't say that, the standard system that every town in the state of Massachusetts uses. There are requirements the Department of Revenue require us to do to make it standard to all the towns. They don't let each town do something different. So re-roofing is a maintenance thing.
okay,
It's a mass appraisal, it's not individual. So your colonial, they're basically together. You're assessed if you've got 3,000 square feet and you've got 2,000 square feet, you're gonna be assessed on those square footages.
okay, and keep going, I'll come back to this with one data point, but I want you to keep going, you're doing.
Redoing bathrooms. If it's a 20-year-old house and you're
Yeah.
redoing a bathroom, how much better can your bathroom be unless you put Italian marble, unless you put, I don't know, you're just remodeling that bathroom. You're not adding a bathroom, you're
Not
just
adding that.
changing out the counter. You're just putting something better on the wall. You're just changing out the cabinets. Remodeling a bathroom isn't going to create more value.
Oh, just a quick comment, okay, from some things I've read, and I'll start with the roof one first, because they talked about putting a new roof on the house. I understand from an assessment point of view, it's quote maintenance, doesn't impact the value of the house. From a value of the house in the market, okay, I read something that said typically a new roof gets you 70% of the value when you sell the house, because they know they don't have to do it for another 20 years.
You get 70%?
70,
Okay.
let's put it this way, I guess I will paraphrase. What I read seemed to indicate that people thought the market benefit and the market increase in market value of a new roof, of a redone bathroom, of a redone kitchen, all of them were in the 65 to 75% range. You get that benefit back in terms of the sales price. That's a market kind of thing now. It's different than taxes, I understand.
Okay. I'm trying to explain to you that those things, when it's valued within system,
Mhm.
if you're just doing a basic remodel in a bathroom, that's not going to increase your value. Now, you can go on DOR's website and you can pull up Course 101, which is Course 101.
Courts 101?
Course, COURSE, Course 101. Maybe that'll help explain valuation, standard across the board. That's gotta be taken by all board members and staff. That's your first course.
Okay. All right, interesting.
So,
Okay, but in general, these things, well, keep going.
Well, no, go ahead.
Well, so some of these things in here, though, it appears that they have market value impact. Okay, you're saying that the assessment system we have right now would say, those are maintenance. It's like if you fixed a step that was rotting, or you repainted some wood that was on the outside that was
Right.
beginning to peel.
Right,
It's maintenance, no change in the assessed value.
right. Now, say
Okay.
you had an 1890s built house and you had a bathroom that was changed up in 1940.
Right, yes.
And then went in and remodeled, that would affect value because now you're bringing it up to this age. So
Okay.
it would create a little bit more value because you're bringing the house up to a more,
Contemporary.
yes, if that's the way you want to call it.
So in their system, they account for that
Right.
based upon the year.
No, okay, there's
So
some,
it's a really old house and they're doing a remodel of bathroom or they're remodeling the kitchen. Say an old house that had the old metal sinks with the old metal cabinets and they ripped it all out.
yes, right.
They put nice cabinets, they put granite countertops or Corian. That would bring some value.
Okay, and is the value that it brings? You started to say earlier that it's determined by a program in terms of what the value of that is, okay? All right, so this program determines it.
Yeah.
All right, the data I was reading online that said that from a market perspective, basically, roughly you were getting 65 to 75% back on a class of modifications I looked at. Not everything gives you that much, but remodeled bathroom, a new roof, and I think a remodeled kitchen. We're all roughly in that range.
Right.
Okay. So, okay, I guess then I'm gonna want to keep going on this, because then I'm gonna ask the question, what's the impact then when, let's say you had 100 capes, and they were all assessed at something like 250,000, I don't know, it's some number. And now 3 of those sell this in the past year. They all had some work done to them and they sold for 350,000,
Mm-hmm,
okay?
yeah.
How does the fact that those 3 upgraded houses selling for 350 impact the value of the other houses, the other 97 that didn't sell and probably didn't have all that work done to them?
You don't know that until we do our encyclical inspections every 10 years.
And which kind of inspection?
It's called an encyclical inspection.
Sure, and then
Encyclical inspection, again, you can go on the Department of Revenue's website and you can see what is required for an encyclical inspection.
okay, this is every
10 years.
every 10 years.
State mandates that every single town in the state of Massachusetts does a full measuring list. That means that somebody has to go to every single property in the town of Lancaster that has a structure on it, remeasure the whole thing, get inside, go through the whole card with the owner, and make sure that our data is accurate.
I'm sorry, you used the phrase full measure and list?
Yeah.
All right, I'm just,
How could, what, is it done by the building inspector?
No,
Or the-
oh, no,
Who does
no, it's the assessor's office that's responsible. Now, the state mandates it, it costs money, but
Yeah.
the state does not give you any money for it.
So,
They can mandate
how do we,
everything.
who do we have to do it?
We ended up, when I did it, done it twice. Wow. We ended up doing it over a 4-year period. We ended up getting a, company to come in and at least do the measuring and listing. So they'd go out, we would make their appointments, we sent all the letters out, we did all the data entries to keep the costs down. All they had to do was go out to every property. If the owner wasn't there, they had to leave a card. After 30 days, we had to send a letter and a questionnaire and hope that at least they answer the questionnaire. We did that over 5 years, so we took sections of town and did it.
Okay, all right.
We got through it. We'll be starting it again very shortly.
Okay, and when you say a full measure and list, do you mean a full measure and list of the outside or?
So we go to your property. We
Okay.
measure your whole structure outside.
Sure.
You have a shed, you have a detached, whatever. They will go and they will measure it.
Yeah, because this is a lot of work, you know?
Oh, then they will go in with the owner and they will go through the card and they will walk the whole house.
Okay,
And they will check off everything we have. If that person or Roy did a finished basement, you can take a permit out. It gets on the card.
Mhm.
No.
Yeah, catch you in 10 years. You were, you got skated off for 10 years, but then that 10th year, you get it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So geez, could that data entry be done by some of the
No.
tax work off?
No, because the data entry's gotta be accurate.
Yeah,
Tax workup person comes in, puts the wrong information, that person's gonna get charged for something they don't have, or it's not
Yeah.
being charged. You
just
can't-
curious, because
yeah,
I'm
you
like, well, that's a lot,
Okay.
because
If
you're
the
gonna pay
former
somebody.
owner didn't take out, do everything, and you have the house, it's not your fault that they
It's
didn't.
not, but you're responsible at that point.
It just
Yeah.
changes your assessment?
Yep, it changes your assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like we
So the
just,
last time it was done was 10 years ago then.
it
you know,
was
basically.
No, it was,
8 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, so we've gotta start ramping up.
it
I
cost-
vaguely remember some people coming to the house. I can't tell you what. Yeah.
So I mean, there are systems in place for answering exactly what you're doing, and the program itself is mandated by the state, you know,
And, okay, so this program is mandated by the state and it goes through some algorithms and makes a determination. And, okay, and we don't know how the program makes whatever determination it's gonna make, but it does it, and this is what the Department of Revenue has blessed as the way to do.
But some of
For
it is
every
based on
town.
like the grade, like we talked about.
Grading condition, correct, correct. But in all, a new construction would be a good grade at this point. A 40-year-old house would be average grade. Now, say you went in and you gutted the whole thing on a permit. And I mean, you went down to the studs, you put all new electrical, you put all new heating, you put in all new pipes. That grade would probably be adjusted because it's not an old home anymore. So these are things that you would be looking at.
So whatever impact these 3 houses that sold with their upgrades would have, only the program knows, and at the end of the day, it's gonna spit out, these are now the assessed values of
the other 97.
the other 97, okay, and we don't
Looks
know,
at them and says, yes, they're okay, or no, they're not.
and we don't know how it does it. I see, is there,
I'm not saying, I don't know how they,
okay, all right,
but on the layman side, no. And I can't sit here and go through the whole class of how it works because there's so many pieces to the puzzle.
okay, and fine, yeah, and pointing people to where they can go get more information is
But
fine.
I can say that, and we've always said, when a taxpayer gets their tax bill, they go online and they look at their field card. They have every right to file that abatement, which I think is fair. And if they file an abatement and they don't agree with what the Board of Assessors decision is, they have the right to go to the appellate tax board,
Mhm.
which has nothing to do with the town of Lancaster, has nothing to do with the assessors. And then the appellate tax board makes a decision. So I'm not saying it's a perfect process. Nothing is perfect. I mean, especially when you're doing mass appraisal.
Sure.
It's just.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
not,
right.
it's
You
not,
can't get
it's
every-
not gonna happen. So when you do see, when somebody comes in, like, for example, someone just purchased a house,
Mhm.
they filed an abatement. We had a finished basement. Well, yes, they did have a finished basement, but they had a flood. No permits, the old owner took all the stuff out. We didn't know. They filed an abatement. The principal assessor and the contract person went out, looked at it, came back to the board, and the board said, fine. They don't have it. There should have been a permit. If they had taken a permit to take it out, we would have had no problem in taking it out.
Right, but they didn't know, yeah.
You know?
Okay, yeah,
So
sure,
situations like that happen.
sure,
Yeah.
right.
And what happens if somebody like, are you able to sell a house for $1, say, to, a family member? And does that skew then the
No.
sale?
No,
Because
because
they-
as
Arm's length,
they have to be arm's length. And what
Transaction.
arm's length
Okay.
means is a willing buyer and a willing seller.
Uh,
So if you look at a sale
Mhm.
and you go back into the deed and they say, well, the boat went with the house. All the furnishings went with the house. It was an estate sale, which meant that, yes, you're a buyer who doesn't know them, but they had to dump the house. They had to dump that property because it's an estate. We can't use that.
Mhm.
It's not a fair,
right, so you wouldn't use that sales
No.
price, but you would use other sales prices to determine what the value of this.
So that just gets thrown out
Right.
of the database.
Of the new home sale.
right,
Yeah, okay,
we
got
have to use deeds that are arm's length.
Yeah,
Yes, got
okay,
it, and
understand,
seems eminently reasonable, sure, right.
makes sense.
Okay, all right, well, you're educating me a lot here, I'm understanding a lot more. Okay, so it's this program that's gonna do this, and whether or not it does any of these things in here is only known to the software. Is that, I mean, whether or not it uses the full reported costs, if they spend $100,000 to do a remodeling of the house.
That's not necessarily what the value is gonna come up with.
Right,
It
right.
may come up less than 100,000.
Right, you folks, somebody from the assessor's office goes out, does a measurement and looks at the grade and everything else and determines a number,
Yeah.
whatever that is.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a individually assessed number. Okay,
So the company or person or group that you hire to do all this, do you then talk to the finance committee to say, well, we're gonna put this budget for this number of years, 4 or
We
5
have a
years?
budget in
Okay.
our budget.
Okay, that's for that, spread out over 10 years?
But
or
again, I want to make it quite clear. The contract company that we have works very closely with the principal assessor. That company does not work on its own.
No, I understand that, but you're paying a third party and that's an expense that costs that, I'm just, from a finance standpoint, I'm just trying to understand, like, do they do it for that year? Do they budget, okay, here's $50,000 for this guy to do this all year long? And then it's 4 years in a row, and that's budgeted out of your budget. But, maybe it's assessed over time, it's 10 years. And so you allocated over 10-year period. I'm just curious that it goes into finance.
okay. All right, the whole thing about an unsold home, if they do a permitted upgrade, you come out and you do an assessment on that. So that answers that set of questions. So do they have a written process? It sounds like it sounds like there's some amount that's embedded in the software.
Right.
And there's some amount that's embedded in terms of the assessors going out and measuring. Those,
Yeah.
are those the two primary pieces then?
Yeah.
Deborah?
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful to know and I understand. I thought I read something that said you can only really appeal a home's assessed value during, is it the 90 days?
It's 30 days.
30 days.
30 days?
If you look at your real estate bill, your third quarter, January
Yes,
1st,
right.
you look at that tax bill and it will state on there, abatement date. Abatements are due by.
Mhm.
That is the date that all abatements are due in. So you've got 30 days from, if the bill goes out and Monday is January 1st, you have February 1st.
Okay, and I may have to go crack it back down, but I read something, it seemed like there was some process with the state where you had 90 days?
The Board of Assessors, once the abatement is in, has 90 days to act on the
Okay,
abatement from
okay.
the date that it comes in.
But the owner
Owner
Has-
only has 30 days. to
only
get
has
that
30 days, and
application.
it's January, basically.
Yeah.
If you come in any other time,
If you come in on February 10th, the
Okay,
Board
go
of
ahead.
Assessors cannot act on that meeting.
all right, so they say
It's a
interesting
shame,
information,
so-
come back next year.
Yeah,
Right.
that's exactly.
Yeah, and
Basically,
right.
And,
But that's the
and
way
I'm
laws
sure that, yeah, and I'm sure that there's that because they're basing what they expect revenue to be. And so they need this window to say, well, this is how much that we think we're going to get from all these homes. So if you have half the town coming to you and saying, I want to reassess this halfway through the
Sure,
year, it changes your tax base, so that's understandably why there's this window where you can do it.
Sure, and I don't have a problem with there being a window. I bet most people, most taxpayers in Lancaster don't know it's the month of January. They get.
Correct.
Okay.
and the sad thing is all that information about when you file, what you can file for, and on our website, Bobby Joe makes sure that the abatement applications are on there, exemption applications are on there. All those applications that are due by deadlines are up on our website.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, and, yeah,
And
okay,
the back of the tax bill explains everything about it. And that course 101, that'll explain it.
all right. We're gonna have hundreds of people signing up.
Yeah.
We talked about contracts. Contracts for our department has to be to get an outside vendor for a contract, we have to use chapter 30B of the Mass General Law. We have to follow that law.
Okay, for the rest of us who don't know Massachusetts general law controls, you do.
See, I don't have my phone. Basically, what it is the procurement law
Okay,
that can be pulled
thank
up. Procurement law requires you to do certain things. For certain costs, you have to do like 3 bids. It all explains it. Each town has a procurement officer that has to look over these contracts, and that has to look over these bids.
okay. So there's a law with a set of processes you have to follow, and then we have.
And
a
the
procurement
assessors
officer.
is right in that law
Yeah, and,
for
okay,
assessments.
fine, okay. Okay, so it is 30 days. And I guess my last question was, I know we have some stuff in, Bobby Joe has described the tax assessment process online and those kinds of things. But do we have any place a list of all the tax exemptions that a homeowner, senior or others, can apply for?
Those are on the back of the tax bill. Trying to think.
But
She
the
only
website,
puts them up when the time frame is for them.
I'm
So
sorry?
she only puts them on the website when the time frame is up for them. So in other words, like the 41C, seniors exemptions, those are from one certain time to, another certain time.
Mhm.
And she'll put them up on the website. I'm not quite sure if there is a list. She may have one. She's been adding a lot to the
yeah, I
website,
thought,
so,
I
you know,
thought
there may
was,
be one.
but maybe.
Okay, yeah, because I haven't seen it. I know some other towns have.
Yep,
There is a page you can go to, and it's this
Yeah.
laundry list of stuff,
Yeah.
which you have to wade through, okay, and it can be pretty long.
Mhm.
But at least it's a full list of what seniors or other, or non-seniors,
veterans.
veterans, et cetera, could apply for. And at least it's a comprehensive list. If someone wants to see, there's nothing they can apply for, they can go to one of them. Okay. Thank you very much for the discussion and the education, ma'am, You have taught me and us more about taxes than.
Yeah, I mean, without you and Dick, like, to give us the heads up, like, we're,
Because
So
again, for us.
I know it's painful to like have to attend, but I really do say thank you, because without you, we're, in the wind,
Well, yeah, you are the subject matter expert, so we
Yeah,
appreciate it.
and that's why they're assigned
You know.
to the
Sure,
group,
right,
so.
and it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay, good, we'll sign that, okay. All right, any other comments? Thank you, Deb, I appreciate, right, and the discussion was better than any kind of, email back and forth on this, because, right, we need to have some discussion. Thank you very much. I think it was helpful for me. I think it was helpful for the whole committee. Okay.
Very.
All right, it is now almost 8 o'clock. I don't like to have us go much past 8. Right.
A long day.
It's been a long day. All right, then we will defer this next major topic, which was gonna have to do with proceeding on the remaining items in the tax fairness committee charter and the discussion we started to get into at the last meeting. I'll defer that because that will take a reasonable amount of time. There is an issue we need to talk about relative to the next meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for the I'm sorry. It is scheduled for, I think it's the 17th, or it's at least the week of the 17th.
I don't know if I'll be able to make that.
What is it?
Okay,
17.
it is the 17th. Now, I will be out of town that whole week.
I'm gonna be heading out I'm gonna be unavailable from that next week. Almost, well, through May.
Okay. So the whole.
You're gone for how long?
I'm all over the place,
Right, okay,
so I'm not gonna be here.
okay, all right.
I think probably it'll be 2 or 3 meetings within that time frame.
Okay, and roughly you have limited availability between starting when and ending when, just to have a rough idea.
I leave the Monday, the 20th, but I don't have my calendar.
Here, what do you need?
Just a calendar.
Yes, sure, 1 second.
Thank you. So I leave on the 22nd, fly in, fly back out the end of the week. I'm gone that whole next week. I don't fly back till May 2nd. Then I fly back out on the 6th. I do not fly back till the 10th. Then I fly back out on the 20th, and I won't be back till the 23rd of May.
23rd of May.
Yeah.
So between, roughly a month, between 4/22 and 5/23,
Yeah.
you have limited availability, as they would say. Okay, all right. Right, okay. And I am out the week of the 17th. And I just received notice the other day that, as I mentioned to you at the last meeting, I'm running for finance committee. And the candidates night has been scheduled by the Lancaster Land Trust for the 24th, which is the next Wednesday. Okay? So I would be unavailable on the 24th.
And this room is unavailable too,
Yeah, okay, fine. Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. Okay.
and that's a Wednesday, so we
Right.
typically have meetings.
So we've got a couple of options here. One is we could try to do something before the 17th, although that feels rushed to me, and I've got a lot of stuff I have to do. So I would not be in favor of doing it before the 17th. So I can't do it the 24th. If we wanted to, I could maybe do something the 25th or so, which would be a Thursday, or well, the next option would be to do it on May 1st. What are people's thoughts?
It's good for me.
Yeah,
Okay,
May 1st.
May 1st.
Okay.
All right. All right, I will reschedule then for May 1st and get this room booked for that. And then not only we would meet, well, if we did it May 1st, that would be good, because then we have the annual town meeting on the 6th, then the town elections on the 13th, and nominally our next meeting would be the 22nd, which would be after all of those. So it gets us just before all that and after that.
Yep.
So that makes some sense. Okay, all right. So we will do May 1st and May 22nd, and I will get a notice to you on that.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
And if we come back on the 22nd, 22nd, you're not back to the 23rd.
Mhm.
Yeah, we may, okay.
But
Yeah, right.
don't worry about it.
Right. Okay. All right, with that, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
All right, is there a second?
Second,
Deborah seconded. Is there any discussion? All those, I can't do that. Because we're Zoom, I can't do that. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Deborah,
yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Roy,
Yes.
Sheila,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Heidi, yes.
Okay, we are adjourned.